Madam Vice President, this is my first opportunity to extend my own congratulations to you on your ascension to the chair. It comes, however, with a wish that you should rejoin your colleagues at the earliest possible opportunity. Now, my colleague, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, has moved a number of orders this morning, before we broke. And what struck me was that the responses thus far have come from attorneys. That is a good thing. Senator Vera and Senator Arawi. Now, I'm many things, but I am not an economist. And I did not plan to speak, but I have been emboldened by the courage that my colleagues displayed in attempting to speak to what is a financial matter of some serious concern. So, and in an attempt particularly to clear the air on some of the more reckless statements that have been made this morning in respect of the orders. Now, if I could just characterize in my own way of thinking, I thought that Senator Vera's contribution was constructive in the main. Yes, there were criticisms. That is what one would expect in a democracy where we have good thinking persons who disagree on matters of policy. His approach, however, was to say, listen, these orders are going to come into force, but I ask the government to look at X and Y and Z. So I would characterize that to be constructive. Senator Arawi, on the other hand, he pointed out the obvious, which is that the Senate has before it orders, and that there are three things that can be done. One, approval, two, rejection, and three, amendment. Now, his contribution was destructive in the sense that he sought an amendment. And he sought an amendment on a couple grounds. First of all, and I have to clarify some of the language that my colleague used. Now, as a lawyer, I am not going to tell economists how they should use language, what their terms mean, and I take great offense when some of my colleagues think that they can do that. So he said that, and I'm certain that he says these things. He says these things with aplomb. Now, if it is one thing that Senator Arawi has always been known for, and this is from the days when he was my student, it is that... It is that... Say again? He did a good job as a student. He spoke with considerable aplomb. Not sure that he was always right. He was more often wrong than right. But he was always confident in what he said, and that is you must get some points for that. So he says that the orders relate to excise matters, and then then this is what he says. He says, an excise duty is a duty on locally produced goods. That is what he said. And I see my colleague, the Minister of Trade, shaking his head, because yesterday when he said to us that the Minister of Trade was an icon, which I think he is, yesterday when he said those words to us, the Minister of Trade, in his normal selfie-facing self, said nothing, and be that as it may, the Minister of Trade knows what the meaning of excise is. Now, I was reminded of and I hate to bring Humpty Dumpty into the debate this afternoon, but this is what Humpty Dumpty says. When I use a word, Humpty Dumpty said, in a rather scornful tone, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more, neither less. Now, Alice, of course, is confused. She says, the question is whether you can make words mean so many different things. And the answer is no. Excise means what it means. You can't tell us that an excise duty is a duty on locally produced goods, because it is not. An excise duty is a tax which is levied on goods and commodities produced in or sold within a country. Now, that disjunctive bit there, it destroys the premise of what he said. Because if we move away from the fact that it's a tax on locally produced goods, to the fact that it is not a tax on locally produced goods, it's a tax levied on goods and commodities produced in or sold with it, then that makes a world of difference. So I just want to get that out of the way, and to say that words are important, and we must not, all of us, we must not be reckless with the words that we use. No amount of shouting, no amount of theater, no amount of hand movement. And that's a lesson that comes from Alice in Wonderland, Humpty Dumpty. Okay? Now, he's also confused, because he said, on the one hand, as I heard that, he said on the one hand that demand for these products, alcohol and tobacco, is inelastic. And then, no, he said immediately after that the revenue projections would not be attained. Now, we are lawyers. We're not accountants. But I see the Minister of Trade looking at me and shaking his head. You know why? Because if demand is inelastic, it's not going anywhere. It's the same demand. And the price goes up, then what happens? I think that, so we're in school, right? The revenue projections are more than likely going to be met. And those are the first two things that I just want to tick off and to get out of the way. Now, to the main thrust of his contribution, however, what was noteworthy and what I take issue with is his focus. So he spoke entirely about the manufacturers, in particular Angostura and Whitco. Now, he also spoke about the NIF. I can be corrected. As I say, I'm a lawyer. And if the Minister of Trade tells me that Whitco is in the NIF, then I'll accept that. But I thought that the NIF was for companies which were state-owned or partially state-owned, or in which the state had acquired through distress or otherwise some sort of interest. So that Angostura is inside there, but Whitco is not. And thanks for that confirmation, Mr. Finance. That's just common sense. Now, if the point is, and I think I heard him say something just now, if the point is that we concentrate on the bottom line to these enterprises, Angostura and Whitco, then you miss half of the argument which my colleague put. Because he said that the orders are designed to encourage ordinary people in Trinidad and Tobago to be healthier, in part, at least in part. Yes, they are designed to raise revenue, but also they are designed to encourage people not to smoke. And perhaps not to drink in excess, not to smoke, not to drink in excess, because this is not us. We haven't done this. Tobacco kills. And the profits that he produced in terms of Whitco's declining profits, that's not us. It's a fact that if tobacco kills, and if that message is getting out, and if people are behaving rationally, they will smoke less. That's all that there is to that. And it's the same thing with respect to alcohol consumption. I declare interest or lack of interest. I do not smoke, I do not drink. But as I understand it,
the Whitco.
No.
45.
No. Just point of order, please.
Sorry. 45 1B.
Wait.
Okay, no problem. That's fine. That's fine.
So you are trying to... So you need clarification on something? Yes. From the Attorney General?
Yes.
Okay, so after, he will be able to clarify for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, so if I could just push on from there. My friend, Senator Arawi, then made a jump from Angostura profit of 104 million to Whitco's declining profit, and he somehow linked those two things to NIS contributions, loan financing. No, as far as I'm concerned, those are two separate matters. They have nothing to do with the orders before us. And what I found particularly disturbing was that there was all of this focus on the bottom line of these companies. So the concern wasn't how many people are dying from cigarette smoke, how many people are being injured by addiction to alcohol, which is half of what we the order is designed to do. He excludes that. And you know what I say as a former member of the People's National Movement? Before him, former member of the People's National Movement. I say shame on him. And shame on the PNM because it has abandoned its core principles. It has lost sight of the fact that at some point in time, its leader, the leader of the PNM, said, we are about lifting lowly caste and adding dignity to the underclass. So, and that's not all that they have done. That's not all that they have done. So I have several problems with them. That is my main problem. They have lost sight of that, and they have allowed themselves to be infiltrated by elements which are concerned only with the bottom line, the profit.
Illegally.
So it would be remiss of me. I said that I would be making a short contribution. As a lawyer, that's all I am. I'm not an economist. This talk about the Manatee field. Now, it started last night, but many of us in the Senate were tired by the time we heard this. Monday night. The days are slipping by ever so quickly. But again, the Lauren Manatee arrangement was negotiated when I was the Attorney General. And I happen to know something about it. Now, we had a dispute, a boundary dispute. I happen to know something about it. It is Lauren, Spanish, Manatee, Trinidad. Okay? Now, it is one reservoir, but the Manatee, which is all that he spoke about, and it made the point, it underlined the point, which I'm sure they all know. One, that field has been deunitized. That's the first thing. Secondly, the Manatee side of the field is entirely in the domestic the waters of Trinidad and Tobago. It is precisely that. It is disinformation. And if I could just be permitted to speak once more, as I used Humpty Dumpty a little while ago to make a point. Just want to refer to one more saying, and it is this. And I will use the author who is less offensive, because this, after all, is the Senate. It is a lie repeated often enough can create an illusion of truth. And then it goes on, no matter how big the lie, if you repeat it often enough, the masses will regard it as truth. Kennedy said it, and somebody else said it. I hear my colleagues say Goebbels. I don't want to use Goebbels. I don't want to go to Hitler. This is the Senate, after all.
Don't call me but
So
go to God.
let me stick to Kennedy. The fact is that the activity that is taking place today is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago waters. That is fact. The fact is that the Manatee field comprises gas that is owned, well, when the Manatee, Laurel Manatee field comprises gas that is owned by Trinidad and Venezuela, but not as the other field, the Dragon field, which is with only Venezuelan gas. It's been deunitized, and the majority of the gas, I don't want to state how much, I'm just a lawyer,
A good one.
but it's in excess of 70%. And for you to come here, not once, not twice, repeat the same thing, not once, not twice, you're trying to tell the population of that the entire budget is going to collapse on itself. Well, this is not PNM light. It is not the new PNM. We know what we are about, and that is not going to happen. Madam Vice President, I ask that the orders before us be approved and that the minister in the Ministry of Finance be sent on his way as quickly as we can to do the nation's business.
Senator Bruno.